I thought I'd hidden well enough in the forgotten supply closet tucked behind the executive offices, my back pressed against stacked boxes of printer paper, while silent tears traced paths down my cheeks and my phone buzzed repeatedly with messages I couldn't bear to open again, when the door swung open with sudden purpose and flooded the darkness with harsh overhead light that made me squeeze my eyes shut in absolute mortification. Standing there in the doorway, his tall frame filling the entire space with a kind of commanding presence that made rooms feel smaller and air feel heavier, was Enzo Morellini himself, the head of the most powerful crime family in the city. The man whose impossible schedule I coordinated every single day. The man whose cold efficiency could make powerful people disappear without a trace, holding his phone in one hand while his other hand hovered near his concealed weapon, his expression shifting from sharp alertness to something I'd never seen cross his impossibly handsome face before. Genuine, unconcealed worry. For just over a year, I had maintained the perfect illusion of the unshakable professional. The woman who never flinched when dangerous men walked through our doors with briefcases full of unmarked bills. Who never asked questions about the hushed phone calls that happened after midnight. Or the meetings that required everyone else to leave the building. Who kept my focus steady and my hands calm even when his violent world pressed against the walls of our shared space like a storm testing windows. I had been so careful, so meticulously controlled, managing his empire's logistics with detailed spreadsheets and perfect timing, keeping my inappropriate feelings for him locked away so deep beneath business casual and professional smiles that I sometimes managed to forget they existed at all. But now, everything was falling apart like dominoes. And the one person I never wanted to see me broken was looking at me with an intensity that made my already fragile heart feel like it might shatter completely. "Reina," he said, and the way my name sounded in that deep, authoritative voice that usually delivered orders about territories and eliminations made something inside me crack wider, because there was a softness there I'd never heard before, a gentleness that seemed impossible coming from a man who'd built his empire on calculated violence. He entered the closet, which suddenly felt impossibly intimate, with his presence taking up all the space and all the air, and I watched through blurred vision as he secured his phone in his pocket before reaching out with one strong, capable hand to cup my chin with surprising care, tilting my face toward his so I had no choice but to meet those intense dark eyes that seemed to see straight through every wall I'd ever built. "Who made you cry?" he asked quietly, his thumb brushing away a tear with unexpected tenderness. "And how would you like me to handle them?" The question should have frightened me. Should have reminded me exactly who I worked for. What kind of ruthless power lived behind those expensive Italian suits and that strategic mind. But instead, something warm and aching bloomed in my chest. Because for the first time in my life, someone was offering to carry my weight, to solve my problems with a kind of absolute certainty that only someone like Enzo Morellini possessed. I opened my mouth to brush it off, to lie, to protect the professional distance that had kept me employed and safe for these past 12 months. But the words died in my throat when I saw the way his expression hardened. The way his other hand curled into a fist, as if he was physically restraining himself from acting before he even knew what he was acting against. And I understood with sudden, overwhelming clarity that lying to him right now would be impossible, because he would see through it the way he saw through everything else in his world. "It's nothing you need to worry about, Mr. Morellini," I whispered, even though my voice broke and fresh tears fell, hot and embarrassing against my face. "It's personal. It's my problem, and I'm sorry for being unprofessional. It won't happen again." His eyes darkened dangerously, and I watched his face shift into something harder, something that reminded me exactly why his enemies crossed the street when they saw him coming. Why his name was whispered with respect and fear in equal measure. "When you cry in my office," he said quietly, his voice dropping to something dangerous and possessive, "it becomes my problem. And I don't leave my problems unsolved." My breath caught. My hands trembled. "Mr. Morellini, please." "Enzo," he corrected, his grip on my chin tightening just slightly. "And you're going to tell me everything, Reina. Right now." The authority in his voice left no room for argument. This wasn't a request. This was a command from a man who'd built an empire on getting exactly what he wanted. So I broke. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story so far, please subscribe to Undiluted Love Stories. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more emotional, unforgettable tales like this one. Don't miss what happens next. The words came tumbling out in broken fragments. My brother, the photos that arrived every morning, the threats that escalated with each passing day, the ransom I couldn't possibly pay, the deadline that was approaching like an execution date. I told him about the Cardenas cartel and their demands. About how they'd found my weakness and exploited it with surgical precision. About how I'd planned to leave work early today. To trade myself for my brother's life. To walk into their hands alone because I couldn't bear the thought of dragging anyone else into my nightmare, especially not him. Enzo listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every word I spoke, his body coiling tighter like a spring under immense pressure. When I finally finished, when the last confession left my lips and left me empty and exposed, he stood abruptly. The sudden movement made me flinch. He pulled out his phone and dialed with swift efficiency. "Marco," he said, his voice transformed into something cold and lethal. "Full mobilization. Every soldier. Every resource. Cardenas cartel has made a mistake, and we're going to correct it permanently." My heart stopped. "Mr. Morellini, Enzo, you can't." He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes made my protest die in my throat. "Reina," he said, each word deliberate and final, "they touched something that belongs to me. They threatened someone under my protection. They declared war the moment they sent you that first photograph. But I never asked for your protection." "You didn't have to," he cut in, stepping closer until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You became mine the day you walked into my office and made my chaotic world make sense. I've been watching over you longer than you know. Keeping threats away. Making sure no one touched you or anyone you cared about." The confession hit me like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" His jaw clenched. His eyes burned with something fierce and possessive. "I'm saying the Cardenas cartel made a fatal error in judgment," Enzo said, his voice dropping to something darker, something that sent shivers down my spine. "And by sunrise tomorrow, they're going to understand exactly what it costs to make Enzo Morellini's woman cry." Before I could process his words, before I could understand what he'd just called me, he turned and walked out of the closet, already issuing orders into his phone, already mobilizing his empire for war. And I realized with terrifying clarity that my carefully controlled life had just been obliterated. Everything had changed the moment he found me crying. And there was no going back. The war room in Enzo's penthouse office felt like standing inside a predator's den, all dark wood, leather, and the kind of expensive technology that could track a target anywhere in the world. I stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, my arms wrapped around myself as I watched Enzo's soldiers file in one by one, each of them armed and dangerous, each of them ready to kill on his command. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another message. Another reminder of the nightmare I'd dragged Enzo into. I pulled it out with trembling fingers and immediately wished I hadn't. The photo was worse than the last one. My brother Danny's face was swollen beyond recognition now, one eye completely shut, blood crusting around his mouth. But it was the message beneath the image that made my knees nearly buckle. "Tick-tock, Reina. Midnight. Come alone. Or we send him back to you in pieces." A choked sound escaped my throat before I could stop it. Enzo's head snapped toward me from across the room where he'd been issuing orders to Marco, his second-in-command. His eyes locked onto my phone, then onto my face, and I watched his expression transform into something absolutely murderous. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and took the phone from my shaking hands. His jaw clenched as he read the message. His knuckles went white around the device. "How long have you been receiving these?" His voice was dangerously quiet. 3 days, I whispered. The first one came Monday morning. Just a picture of Danny outside his apartment. Then Tuesday, they showed him tied up. Today, my voice cracked. Today they hurt him. Enzo's free hand curled into a fist at his side. "And you planned to handle this alone?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation wrapped in barely controlled fury. "I couldn't drag you into this," I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. "I couldn't start a war because of my family's problems. I was going to go after work. I was going to trade myself for Danny and..." "And what?" Enzo cut in, his voice rising for the first time since I'd known him. "Get yourself killed? Tortured? Used as leverage against me anyway?" The last part caught me off guard. "Against you? Why would they?" "Because they've been watching us, Reina." He handed my phone to Marco without breaking eye contact with me. "Trace that number. Find the location. I want satellite imagery, street cameras, everything." Marco nodded and disappeared. Enzo turned back to me, and for the first time, I saw something crack in his controlled exterior. Something raw and desperate beneath all that lethal composure. "Do you really think I haven't noticed?" he asked quietly. "Do you think I haven't seen the way you organize my life with more care than anyone ever has? The way you remember details no one else bothers with? The way you've become the only calm thing in my violent world?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "Mr. Morellini." "Enzo," he corrected again, stepping closer. "And I need you to understand something, Reina. You didn't drag me into this. I've been protecting you since the moment you walked into my office 12 months ago and made me coffee exactly the way I like it without me having to tell you." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "I don't understand." "I've had men watching your apartment building," he continued, each word deliberate, "making sure no one followed you home. I've had your brother monitored, clearly not well enough, to ensure he stayed out of trouble. I've eliminated 3 separate threats against you that you never even knew existed." The confession hit me like ice water. "You've been watching me?" "Protecting you," he corrected. "There's a difference. And I've been failing at it, apparently, because somehow the Cardenas cartel got to your brother anyway." His expression darkened with something that looked almost like guilt. "This isn't your fault," I said automatically. "It's absolutely my fault," he countered. "Because I've been so busy trying to keep my distance, trying to maintain professionalism, trying not to cross the line with you, that I didn't see them moving until it was too late." "What line?" The question left my lips before I could stop it. Enzo's eyes burned into mine. The line between employer and employee. Between boss and the woman he stopped himself, jaw clenching. The woman I haven't been able to stop thinking about for 12 months. The air left my lungs. Before I could respond, Marco rushed back into the room, a tablet in his hands. "Boss, we've got a problem." Enzo's attention snapped to his second-in-command, his body coiling with tension. "Talk." "The Cardenas cartel just sent another transmission." Marco's expression was grim. "We intercepted it 10 minutes ago. They're changing their terms." My stomach dropped. "Show me," Enzo demanded. Marco handed over the tablet, and I watched Enzo's face go absolutely cold as he read whatever message had come through. The transformation was terrifying, like watching a switch flip from human to something far more dangerous. "What is it?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Enzo looked up at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "They don't want money anymore," he said quietly. "They want you. Delivered to them by midnight. In exchange for your brother's life." The room started spinning. "They're using him as bait," Marco added. "They know you'll come. And they're counting on it." "Then I'll go," I heard myself say, though my voice sounded far away. "I'll go right now. They'll release Danny and—" "No." The single word from Enzo carried enough authority to make everyone in the room freeze. "Absolutely not. You're not walking into their hands." "You don't understand," I said desperately, tears burning behind my eyes again. "He's my brother. He's all I have left. If they kill him because of me—" "They won't kill him," Enzo interrupted, "because we're going to extract him before midnight." "And if you can't?" My voice broke. "What if the rescue fails? What if—" Enzo crossed to me and gripped my shoulders, forcing me to focus on him instead of the spiral of terror consuming my mind. "Reina, listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice dropping to something intense and raw. "I haven't slept properly in a year. Not since you walked into my life and became the only thing that makes sense in all this chaos. I've been protecting you from a distance because I couldn't risk getting too close. Couldn't risk feeling something for someone in my world." His grip tightened slightly, desperate. "But they crossed a line today. They hurt someone you love. They made you cry. They threatened to take you from me." His voice cracked. "And I will burn their entire organization to the ground before I let them put their hands on you." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Why?" I whispered. "Why do you care this much?" Something shifted in his expression, all his walls crumbling at once. "Because you're not just my secretary, Reina," he said roughly. "You haven't been for a long time. You're the woman I think about when I should be thinking about business. The reason I come to the office early. The person I His phone buzzed, cutting off whatever confession had been about to leave his lips. He pulled it out, his expression hardening as he read the screen. "What now?" I asked, dreading the answer. Enzo looked up at me, his eyes blazing with cold fury. "The cartel just sent their final offer," he said quietly. "They're giving us 2 hours. Either you come to them willingly by midnight, or they execute your brother on a live stream and come for you anyway." My legs nearly gave out. Marco swore viciously in Italian behind us. But Enzo's grip on my shoulders kept me standing. "We're out of time," I said desperately. "Enzo, please, let me go to them. It's the only way to save Danny." "No." His voice was absolute. "Final. Then what are we going to do?" I demanded, frustration and terror making my voice rise. "You can't fight them and rescue Danny at the same time. There isn't enough time." Enzo stared at me for a long moment, something dark and decisive settling over his features. Then he turned to Marco. "Contact the Cardenas cartel directly," he ordered. "Tell them I'm invoking Vendetta Carta." The room went dead silent. Marco's eyes widened. "Boss, that's an ancient challenge," Enzo finished coldly. "A blood-sanctioned duel between leaders. Mafia law. If I win, the cartel dissolves, and Reina's brother goes free. If I lose," he stopped, his jaw clenching. "If you lose, you die," I finished, horror flooding through me. "And I get taken anyway." Enzo looked at me, and I saw the truth in his eyes. "I'm not going to lose, Reina. You can't know that." I grabbed his arm desperately. "You can't risk your life, your entire empire for me." He cupped my face with both hands, forcing me to meet his gaze. "I can," he said simply. "And I will. Because losing you would destroy me far more permanently than any bullet ever could." Before I could argue, before I could protest, Marco's phone buzzed. "They've accepted," Marco said quietly, his expression grim. "Rafael Cardenas himself will face you. Midnight. The old shipping yard on the waterfront." Enzo nodded once, his expression settling into something cold and lethal. The man I worked for, the controlled, calculating boss, had transformed completely into the Mafia king whose reputation made hardened criminals wake up screaming. "Prepare the men," Enzo ordered. "Full tactical gear. I want snipers on every rooftop, extraction teams on standby, and medical ready for immediate trauma response." He turned back to me, and despite the cold authority in his voice, his hands were gentle as they held my face. "Reina, I need you to trust me," he said quietly. "Can you do that?" Through my tears, through my terror, through everything crashing down around us, I nodded. "I trust you." Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. "Then believe me when I tell you," he murmured, his forehead touching mine, "I'm coming back to you. And when I do, I'm never letting you go again." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of weapons checks, tactical planning, and the kind of controlled chaos that came with preparing for war. I sat in the corner of Enzo's office, watching him transform from the man who'd held my face with gentle hands into the lethal commander who'd built an empire on calculated violence. But I couldn't stop thinking about one terrible truth: if Enzo died tonight, it would be because of me. My phone. My family. My problems. I couldn't let that happen. While Enzo was deep in conversation with Marco about extraction points and sniper positions, I quietly slipped out of the office and made my way down the hallway toward the elevator. My heart hammered against my ribs with every step, but I forced myself to keep moving. If I could get to the cartel before midnight, if I could trade myself willingly, maybe they'd call off the Vendetta Carta. Maybe Danny would be released. Maybe Enzo wouldn't have to risk everything for a secretary who should have handled her own problems. I'd made it halfway to the elevator when a hand closed around my wrist like an iron shackle. "Going somewhere?" Enzo's voice was deadly quiet behind me. I turned slowly to face him, and the expression on his face made my breath catch. He wasn't angry. He was something far more dangerous than that. He was hurt. "I can't let you do this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even as tears threatened to fall again. "I can't let you die because of my family's mistakes. If I go to them now, maybe they'll torture you," Enzo cut in, his grip on my wrist tightening. "They'll use you as leverage against me anyway. And then they'll kill you both once they've gotten what they want." "You don't know that." I know exactly that, he said, pulling me away from the elevator and back toward his office with controlled force. Because I would do the same thing in their position. This isn't about your brother anymore, Reina. This is about power. Territory. Sending a message that they can strike at the Morellini syndicate through you. He pushed open his office door and pulled me inside, slamming it shut behind us. His soldiers quickly made themselves scarce, leaving us alone in the sudden tense silence. Do you understand what you almost did? Enzo demanded, finally releasing my wrist but blocking the door with his body. You almost walked into a trap. You almost gave them exactly what they wanted. You almost. His voice cracked, and he stopped, his jaw clenching as he fought for control. I can't watch you die for me, I said desperately. I can't sit here knowing that you're walking into a fight to the death because I wasn't strong enough to handle my own problems. This isn't about strength, Enzo said roughly. This is about you not understanding what you mean to me. I'm just your secretary. You're not just anything. The words exploded out of him with unexpected force. He crossed the room in 2 strides and gripped my shoulders urgently. You're the woman I've been trying and failing not to fall for since the day you reorganized my entire filing system and made my chaotic empire make sense. You're the person I think about when I wake up. The reason I stopped scheduling early morning hits because I didn't want to miss seeing you walk through that door at 7:30. His hands were trembling against my shoulders. You're the only soft thing in my violent world, Reina. And I cannot, let them take you from me. Tears spilled down my cheeks. But what if you lose? What if Rafael Cardenas? Then I die protecting the woman I love, Enzo said simply, the confession falling from his lips like it had been locked inside him for too long. And that's a better death than I deserve. The word love hung in the air between us like something physical and fragile. You can't mean that, I whispered. I mean every word, he said fiercely. I've been in love with you for months, Reina. Watching you from a distance. Protecting you however I could. Trying to be worthy of someone as good as you are. But I'm not a good man. I'm a killer. A criminal. A monster by every definition that matters. He cupped my face with both hands, his thumbs brushing away my tears. But I'm your monster now, he murmured. If you'll have me. Before I could answer, before I could tell him that I'd been fighting my own feelings for him for just as long, his phone buzzed with violent urgency. He pulled it out, his expression hardening as he read the screen. What is it? I asked, dreading the answer. Enzo looked up at me, and I saw rage and horror warring in his eyes. They sent another video, he said quietly. Of your brother. My heart stopped. Is he? He's alive, Enzo said quickly. But they're hurting him, Reina. They're broadcasting it. Sending it to me as a message. He held out the phone, but I pushed it away, unable to watch. I can't see that. Enzo pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me with fierce protectiveness as I broke down completely. All the fear, all the guilt, all the desperate terror I'd been holding back came flooding out in violent sobs against his expensive shirt. I need to go to them, I cried into his chest. Enzo, please, they're killing him because of me. No. His arms tightened around me. Listen to me, Reina. My men are tracing the video's location right now. We're going to extract him before the midnight deadline. Before the Vendetta Carta even begins. What if you can't? I looked up at him desperately. What if? Then I fight Rafael Cardenas and I win, Enzo said with absolute conviction. And your brother goes free anyway. That's the law of Vendetta Carta, the winner's terms become absolute. But if you lose? I won't lose. He gripped my face again, forcing me to meet his eyes. Because I have something Rafael Cardenas doesn't have. I have something worth fighting for beyond territory and power. What's that? You, he said simply. I'm fighting for you, Reina. For the chance at a life where you're not crying in closets. Where your family is safe. Where I get to keep the only good thing that's ever been mine. His forehead touched mine, his breath warm against my lips. So I need you to trust me, he whispered. I need you to believe that I'm coming back from this. Can you do that? I nodded against him, unable to speak past the emotion clogging my throat. Say it, Enzo demanded softly. Say you trust me. I trust you, I whispered. I trust you, Enzo. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his dark eyes. Then the door burst open. Marco stood in the doorway, breathless and urgent. Boss, we've got the location. Your brother, he said, looking at me, is being held at a warehouse in the industrial district. 15 Cardenas soldiers on site. We can hit them hard and fast if we move now. Enzo pulled away from me immediately, his entire demeanor shifting back into cold command. Full assault team, he ordered. Lethal force authorized. I want Reina's brother extracted alive and delivered to Mercy General Hospital. Radio silence until the operation is complete. What about the vendetta carta? Marco asked. Rafael Cardenas will claim you violated the terms if you strike before midnight. Let him claim whatever he wants, Enzo said coldly. I'm rescuing the hostage first. Then I'll deal with Rafael personally. He turned back to me, and despite the ice in his voice when speaking to Marco, his expression softened when he looked at me. Stay here, he ordered gently. Lock the door after I leave. Don't answer for anyone except me or Marco. Do you understand? I nodded, even though every instinct screamed at me to follow him, to not let him walk into danger alone. Enzo seemed to read my thoughts. He pulled me close one more time, his lips brushing against my forehead with unexpected tenderness. I'm coming back to you, he promised against my skin. And when I do, we're going to have a very serious conversation about you trying to sacrifice yourself. Then he was gone, Marco and a team of armed soldiers following him out the door. I locked it behind them like he'd ordered, then collapsed against the wall, my legs finally giving out completely. All I could do now was wait. Wait and pray that the man I'd fallen in love with would survive the war he'd started for me. But 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. My hands shook as I opened it. The message was simple, devastating, and changed everything. Your brother is bait. The warehouse is a trap. Enzo walks into an ambush in 5 minutes. If you want him to live, come to the shipping yard alone. Midnight. Or watch everyone you love die. Rafael. Below the message was a video clip. I pressed play with trembling fingers. The footage showed the warehouse Enzo was heading toward, surrounded by dozens of armed men. Hidden positions. Sniper nests. Explosives rigged at every entrance. Rafael Cardenas appeared on screen, smiling like a devil. Hello, Ms. Madison. By the time you see this, your hero is walking into his death. Unless, of course, you do the smart thing and come to me instead. I'll call off the ambush. Release your brother. And let Enzo Morellini live, if you belong to me. The choice is yours. Make it quickly. The video ended. I stared at the screen, my entire world collapsing. Enzo was walking into a trap. He'd be slaughtered. Marco, his men, everyone would die because Rafael had played us all. Unless I went to the shipping yard right now. Unless I traded myself. My hands shook as I reached for my coat. I knew Enzo would never forgive me for this. But I'd rather have him hate me and alive than love me and dead. I unlocked the office door and ran. The cab driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror like he couldn't decide if I was running away from danger or toward it. If only he knew the truth, I was running straight into hell to save the man I loved. Miss, you sure about this address? He asked nervously as we approached the abandoned industrial waterfront. This area, it's not safe at night. I'm sure, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Just drop me at the shipping yard entrance. He pulled over 2 blocks away, clearly unwilling to get any closer. I can't go further than this. You want me to wait? No. I handed him cash with shaking hands. Thank you. I stepped out into the cold night air, the smell of salt water and rust filling my lungs. In the distance, I could see the hulking silhouettes of shipping containers stacked like metal mountains against the dark sky. Somewhere in that maze, Rafael Cardenas was waiting for me. My phone buzzed. Another message. Smart girl. Walk straight ahead. Come alone. Try anything clever, and I detonate the warehouse with your lover inside. You have 5 minutes. My heart hammered against my ribs as I started walking, each step taking me further from safety and closer to whatever fate Rafael had planned. The shipping yard was eerily quiet except for the distant sound of water lapping against the docks. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked behind me. "Stop right there, Ms. Madison." I froze, my hands instinctively rising. A man emerged from between two shipping containers, heavily armed, his face shadowed. "Raphael is expecting you. This way." He led me deeper into the maze of containers until we reached an open area that had been cleared like an arena. Floodlights illuminated the space with harsh, artificial brightness. Armed men lined the perimeter, at least 20 of them, all wearing the Cardenas cartel colors. And in the center of it all stood Raphael Cardenas himself. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with slicked-back dark hair and a smile that made my skin crawl. He wore an expensive suit like he was attending a business meeting, not orchestrating a kidnapping. "Raina Madison," he said warmly, like we were old friends. "Right on time. I appreciate punctuality." "Where's my brother?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice from shaking. Raphael gestured to his left, and two men dragged Danny forward. His face was swollen and bloodied, his hands bound behind his back, but he was alive. When he saw me, his eyes widened with horror. "Raina, no," he shouted desperately. "What are you doing here? You need to run." One of the guards hit him across the face, and I lunged forward instinctively. "Don't touch him," I screamed. Raphael held up a hand, and his men stopped. "Easy, Ms. Madison. Your brother is fine. Well, relatively speaking. He'll be released unharmed as soon as you fulfill your end of our arrangement." "I'm here," I said, forcing myself to meet his cold eyes. "Let Danny go. Call off the ambush at the warehouse. Let Enzo and his men leave safely." Raphael's smile widened. "Ah yes, the ambush. Clever of you to figure that out. I was wondering if you would." He pulled out his phone and made a show of typing something. "There. Message sent. The trap has been called off. Your hero gets to live another day." Relief flooded through me, so intense it nearly brought me to my knees. "Now," Raphael continued, pocketing his phone, "let's discuss the terms of your new employment." "Employment?" I asked, confused. "Did you think I went through all this trouble just to kill you?" Raphael laughed. No, Ms. Madison. You're far too valuable for that. You see, Enzo Morellini's weakness has always been his inability to be vulnerable. But you made him care about something other than power. That makes you the most valuable asset in this city." He circled me slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "You're going to work for me now," he said casually. "You're going to feed me information about Morellini operations. Financial records. Shipment schedules. Weaknesses in his organization. And in exchange, your brother lives. Enzo lives. Everyone you love stays safe." Horror crawled up my spine. "You want me to betray him?" "I want you to be smart," Raphael corrected. "Because if you refuse, I kill your brother right now. Then I send my men to the warehouse anyway and slaughter everyone there. And finally, I come for you, and trust me, Ms. Madison, what I'll do to you will make your brother's beating look like a gentle massage." Danny was struggling against his captors, trying to scream something through the gag they'd forced into his mouth. I looked at him, bruised, bleeding, terrified, and then I looked at Raphael's cold smile, and I understood with perfect clarity that I'd walked straight into a trap far worse than the one Enzo had been heading toward. There was no winning here. No escape. No clever solution. Just impossible choices and consequences I couldn't bear. "Let my brother go first," I said quietly. "Then I'll do whatever you want." Raphael studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. But first, insurance." He pulled out a knife. Before I could react, he grabbed my left hand and pressed the blade against my palm, cutting a shallow line across my skin. I gasped in pain as blood welled up. "Ancient cartel tradition," Raphael explained casually, wrapping my bleeding hand in a white cloth. "A blood oath. You belong to me now, Ms. Madison. Break your word, and everyone you love dies screaming." He released me, and I clutched my hand against my chest, feeling dizzy from pain and terror. "Now, release the brother," Raphael ordered. Two guards cut Danny's bonds and shoved him forward. He stumbled toward me, pulling the gag from his mouth. Reina, what did you promise him? Danny asked desperately. What did you do? It's okay, I lied, hugging him tightly with my uninjured hand. You're safe now. That's all that matters. There's a car waiting at the north entrance, Raphael said, his tone bored. Your brother will be driven to the hospital. You, Ms. Madison, will remain here until... The explosion cut off his words. A massive fireball erupted from the south side of the shipping yard, the shockwave powerful enough to knock several guards off their feet. Gunfire erupted immediately, the sharp crack of automatic weapons echoing through the metal containers. Raphael's expression transformed from confident to furious in an instant. What the hell? Reina. The roar of my name cut through the chaos like a blade, and I turned to see Enzo emerging from the smoke and shadows like an avenging angel. He was covered in blood, not his own, I realized with shock, and the gun in his hand was already firing with lethal precision. 3 Cardenas guards dropped before they could even raise their weapons. Marco and a team of Morellini soldiers poured in behind him, engaging Raphael's men in a brutal firefight. You planned this. Raphael snarled at me, grabbing my arm viciously. I didn't, I swear I didn't know. But Raphael wasn't listening. He dragged me backward, using me as a human shield as Enzo advanced through the chaos with terrifying focus. One more step and I put a bullet in her brain. Raphael shouted, pressing a gun against my temple. Everything stopped. Enzo froze mid-stride, his weapon still aimed at Raphael, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. Let her go, Cardenas, Enzo said, his voice deadly calm despite the violence raging around us. This is between you and me. Vendetta Carta. You accepted the challenge. I'm changing the terms, Raphael spat. She's mine now. Blood oath. Cartel law. Enzo's expression darkened dangerously. What did you do to her? Raphael laughed, pressing the gun harder against my head. I made her swear loyalty to me. Cut her palm. The old ways. She belongs to the Cardenas cartel now, Morellini. And there's nothing you can do about. The shot rang out before Raphael could finish. I felt the gun against my head disappear, felt Raphael's grip on me vanish, and then I was falling. Strong arms caught me before I hit the ground. Enzo. He was holding me against his chest, one arm wrapped protectively around me while his other hand still held his smoking weapon. Behind us, Raphael Cardenas collapsed to the ground, a perfect bullet hole through his forehead. I can do plenty about it, Enzo said coldly to the corpse. Then his attention snapped to me, his expression transforming from lethal to anguished as he saw my bleeding hand. What did he do to you? He demanded, his voice rough with emotion. He made me promise, I started, but Enzo cut me off with a fierce shake of his head. Blood oaths mean nothing when they're coerced, he said firmly. You're not bound to anything, Reina. You're free. Around us, the gunfire was dying down. Morellini soldiers were securing the area, disarming the remaining Cardenas guards who'd surrendered. Marco appeared at Enzo's side. Boss, we've got the brother. He's safe. Medical team is with him now. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. Thank God, I whispered. But Enzo wasn't done. He was staring at me with an expression that was equal parts fury and terror. Why? He asked roughly. Why did you come here alone? Why did you think trading yourself was the answer? Because you were walking into an ambush. I said desperately. Raphael sent me a video, showed me the trap at the warehouse, told me he'd kill you unless I came here instead. So you decided to sacrifice yourself. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation wrapped in pain. I couldn't let you die for me, I said, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't. Enzo grabbed my face with both hands, his grip almost painful in its intensity. You could have, he said fiercely. You should have. Because losing you, Reina, watching you walk into danger, not knowing if I'd get to you in time. His voice cracked completely, and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time. You're never doing that again, he said roughly. Do you understand me? You're never sacrificing yourself. You're never trading your life for mine. You're never walking into danger without me. Enzo. Promise me, he demanded. Right now. Promise me you'll never do this again. I promise, I whispered, because I couldn't bear the anguish in his eyes. He pulled me against his chest, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe, and I felt his whole body shaking with emotion he couldn't control. "I almost lost you," he murmured into my hair. "I almost didn't get here in time." "But you did," I said, wrapping my arms around him. "You saved me. You saved Danny. You." "I killed the man who hurt you," Enzo finished darkly. "And I'll kill anyone else who tries." He pulled back just enough to look at my face, his thumb brushing away my tears with devastating gentleness. "You're mine to protect, Reina," he said quietly. "Not the other way around. Do you understand? You don't save me. I save you. That's how this works." "That's not fair." "I don't care about fair," he interrupted. "I care about keeping you alive. Keeping you safe. Keeping you with me." His forehead touched mine, and I felt the warmth of his breath against my lips. "I love you," he whispered, the confession raw and honest. "I'm in love with you, Reina Madison. And I will burn this entire city to ash before I let anyone take you from me again." My heart stuttered in my chest. "I love you too," I whispered back, the truth finally free. "I've loved you for so long, and I was so scared." He kissed me. Right there in the middle of the blood-stained shipping yard, surrounded by bodies and smoke and his soldiers, Enzo Morellini kissed me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. When he finally pulled away, his eyes were blazing with possession and promise. "You're coming home with me," he said. "It wasn't a question. And you're never leaving my sight again." "What about?" "Danny will be at the hospital with round-the-clock protection," Marco interrupted gently. "Best doctors. Private room. He'll be safe, Ms. Madison." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Enzo scooped me into his arms like I weighed nothing and started carrying me toward the waiting vehicles. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Enzo looked down at me, and despite everything, despite the violence and the blood and the bodies left behind, his expression softened. "Now," he said, "I take you somewhere safe. I patch up your hand. And then we talk about what comes next." "What does come next?" His arms tightened around me protectively. "Everything, Reina," he murmured. "Everything I've wanted to give you for 12 months. Everything I've been too afraid to offer. Everything you deserve." He pressed a kiss to my forehead as he settled me into the back of his armored SUV. "And it starts with you never having to hide your tears again." Enzo's penthouse sat at the very top of the Morellini Tower, 60 floors above the city that spread out below like a carpet of lights and shadows. I'd never been here before. In 12 months of working for him, I'd never crossed this threshold into his private world. Now, as he carried me through the door and finally set me down on a leather sofa that probably cost more than my entire year's salary, I understood why. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. Floor-to-ceiling bulletproof windows. Security systems that would make a government facility jealous. But underneath all the protection and precaution, there were small, almost hidden details that made it human. A well-worn book on the coffee table, a framed photograph of a young boy and a beautiful woman who had his eyes, an acoustic guitar leaning against the wall. "Your hand," Enzo said quietly, kneeling in front of me with a first aid kit. "Let me see it." I unwrapped the blood-soaked cloth Raphael had tied around my palm, wincing as the fabric pulled at the drying wound. The cut wasn't deep, but it stretched across my palm in an angry red line. Enzo's jaw clenched when he saw it. "Blood oath," he muttered darkly. "Ancient cartel tradition. He was trying to bind you to him with fear and superstition." "He said I belonged to him now," I whispered. "That if I broke my word, everyone I loved would die." "You belong to no one but yourself," Enzo said firmly, his hands surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the wound with antiseptic. "And if you choose to belong to me, when you choose to, it will be because you want to, not because someone carved it into your skin." He wrapped my hand in clean gauze with practiced efficiency, then pressed a soft kiss to my bandaged palm. "No one will ever hurt you like this again," he promised. "I swear it on my life." I watched him work, this dangerous man being so impossibly tender, and something inside me cracked open completely. "Why did you come for me?" I asked quietly. "You said you were going to the warehouse to rescue Danny. How did you know I'd gone to the shipping yard?" Enzo's hands stilled on mine. When he looked up, his expression was raw. "Because I know you, Reina," he said roughly. I've spent 12 months studying every detail about you. The way you organize files. The way you take your coffee. The way you bite your lip when you're worried about something. And I knew, the moment I realized Raphael had sent you that video, I knew you'd try to trade yourself. He stood abruptly and walked to the windows, his hands curling into fists at his sides. So I split my forces, he continued, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. Sent Marco and half my men to the warehouse. Took the other half to the shipping yard. And prayed to a god I stopped believing in years ago that I'd get to you in time. But the warehouse was a trap, I said, confused. Raphael said. Raphael lied, Enzo cut in. There was no ambush at the warehouse. Just your brother and a handful of guards. Marco extracted him in under 5 minutes. He turned to face me, and I saw the fury and fear warring in his eyes. The real trap was making you think I was walking into one. Making you desperate enough to sacrifice yourself. The realization hit me like ice water. He manipulated me. He manipulated both of us, Enzo corrected. But he underestimated one critical thing. What's that? How far I'd go to keep you safe. His voice dropped to something dangerous and possessive. How many rules I'd break. How many traditions I'd violate. How many people I'd kill. He crossed back to me and knelt down again, taking my uninjured hand in both of his. Reina, I need you to understand something, he said, his dark eyes burning into mine. I've been protecting you for months. Watching over you. Keeping threats away. But tonight I realized that wasn't enough. What do you mean? I mean that keeping you at arm's length, maintaining professional distance, pretending I don't feel what I feel, his voice cracked. It almost got you killed. It almost made me lose the only thing in this world that matters to me. Tears burned behind my eyes again. Enzo. Let me finish, he said roughly. Please. I nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging my throat. He took a shaky breath, and I realized his hands were trembling against mine. When I was 8 years old, I watched my mother die, he said quietly, each word clearly costing him. She was killed by a rival family. Shot in front of me while I hid under the kitchen table. I remember her blood pooling on the floor. I remember her calling my name. I remember not being strong enough to save her. His grip on my hand tightened. That night, I made a vow, Enzo continued. I swore I would never be weak again. Never be vulnerable. Never care about anything or anyone enough to give my enemies leverage against me. I built my empire on that principle. Became the kind of man people fear because fear meant safety. Control meant survival. He looked up at me, and I saw tears tracking down his face. But then you walked into my office 12 months ago, he whispered. With your efficient spreadsheets and your kind smile and your complete lack of fear around me. And every single defense I'd spent 20 years building started crumbling. I scared you, I realized. You terrified me, he admitted. Because I started wanting things I'd forbidden myself to want. Started imagining a life beyond violence and territory wars. Started thinking about what it would be like to wake up next to someone who made the darkness feel less suffocating. His forehead dropped to rest against our joined hands. I told myself I was protecting you from a distance, he said roughly. But the truth is, I was protecting myself from you. From feeling this much. From needing someone this desperately. From loving someone enough that losing them would destroy me. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. But tonight, when I thought Raphael might kill you, when I thought I might be too late, his voice broke completely. I realized that trying to protect myself from loving you was the stupidest thing I've ever done. Because I already love you, Reina. I'm already destroyed by you. And keeping you at a distance doesn't change that. It just means I wasted time I could have spent with you. I was crying openly now, tears streaming down my face. I love you, I whispered. I've loved you for so long, and I thought you could never feel the same way about someone like me. Someone like you? Enzo interrupted fiercely. Reina, you're the best person I've ever known. You're kind in a world that punishes kindness. You're strong without being cruel. You make my chaotic life make sense. You make me want to be better than I am. He cupped my face with both hands, his thumbs brushing away my tears. You make me want to deserve you, he murmured. Even though I know I never will. You already do, I said, covering his hands with mine. You came for me. You saved my brother. You killed the man who hurt us. You. I would do it all again, he cut in. 1,000 times over. I would burn this entire city down if it meant keeping you safe. His voice dropped to something raw and desperate. But I almost lost you tonight, Raina. And I can't, he stopped, struggling for words. I can't go back to pretending there's distance between us. I can't go back to watching you from across an office and pretending that's enough. I can't keep lying to myself that I'm strong enough to let you go. Then don't, I whispered. What? Don't let me go, I said, my voice shaking. Don't keep distance between us. Don't pretend anymore. Hope and fear flashed across his face. Raina, if I don't let you go, if I let myself have this, I will be impossible, he warned. I will be possessive, overprotective, obsessive about your safety. I will want to know where you are every moment, who you're with, whether you're safe. I know, I said. I will drive you crazy, he continued roughly. I will assign bodyguards, install security systems, eliminate anyone who looks at you wrong. I will be the jealous, controlling nightmare that romance novels warn you about. I know, I repeated. And I will never ever let you sacrifice yourself again, he finished fiercely. Never let you walk into danger. Never let you trade your life for anyone's, including mine. You will be mine to protect, and I will be ruthless about it. I looked at this dangerous, powerful man kneeling in front of me with tears on his face and his heart in his hands, and I realized something important. He wasn't asking me to accept his darkness. He was warning me about it, giving me a chance to run while I still could. But I didn't want to run. I wanted to stay. Enzo Morellini, I said softly, framing his face with my hands the way he was holding mine. I've spent 12 months watching you be ruthless with everyone except me. Watching you be cold and calculated with your enemies while being unexpectedly gentle with the woman who organizes your files. His breath caught. I've seen the monster everyone else fears, I continued. And I've seen the man underneath, the one who remembers how I take my coffee. Who notices when I'm having a bad day. Who's been protecting me for months without asking for anything in return. I pressed my forehead against his. So yes, I whispered. Yes, I want you to be possessive. Yes, I want bodyguards and security systems and a man who will move heaven and earth to keep me safe. Yes, I want the jealous, controlling nightmare who loves me enough to show me all his broken pieces. Raina. And in return, I said firmly, I will be the woman who sees past the monster. Who knows that your violence is protection. Who understands that your control is just fear wearing armor. Who loves you not despite your darkness, but because you've used it to keep people like me safe. Enzo pulled me into his arms so suddenly that I gasped, and he buried his face in my neck, his whole body shaking with emotion he couldn't control anymore. I love you, he said roughly against my skin. God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, I whispered, running my fingers through his hair. And I'm not afraid. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes searching mine. You should be, he said. Because now that I have you, Raina, I'm never letting go. Not for anyone. Not for anything. You're mine now. Yours, I agreed softly. Something fierce and possessive blazed in his eyes. Then he kissed me, deep and desperate and full of months of repressed feeling finally set free. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. Stay with me tonight, he murmured against my lips. Not because I expect anything. Just, stay. Let me hold you. Let me make sure you're real and safe and mine. Okay, I whispered. He lifted me again, apparently his preferred method of transportation, and carried me through the penthouse to his bedroom. It was as sophisticated as the rest of his home, all dark colors and clean lines, but the bed was enormous and looked impossibly comfortable. He set me down gently and disappeared into what I assumed was a closet, returning with one of his shirts. For you, he said quietly. If you want to change. I took it, the fabric soft and expensive in my hands. Thank you. He turned away to give me privacy, and I quickly changed out of my ruined clothes and into his shirt, which fell to mid-thigh on me. Okay, I said softly. He turned back, and the expression on his face when he saw me wearing his shirt was pure possession. "You have no idea what you do to me," he said roughly. "Show me," I whispered. But instead of the passion I'd expected, Enzo simply pulled back the covers and climbed into bed, then held out his hand to me. "Come here," he said gently. I slid in beside him, and he immediately pulled me against his chest, wrapping his arms around me like he was afraid I might disappear if he didn't hold on tight enough. "This is what I need tonight," he murmured into my hair. "Just this. Just you safe in my arms where I can feel you breathing. Where I know you're alive and here and mine." I pressed closer, tucking my head under his chin. "I'm here. I'm safe. I'm yours." His arms tightened around me. We lay there in the darkness, our hearts beating in sync, and for the first time in 12 months, I felt completely at peace. "Reina." Enzo's voice was soft in the darkness. "Yes." "When this is over, when your brother is healed and the Cardenas cartel is completely dismantled," he paused, and I felt his heart racing against my back. "Will you stay with me? Not as my secretary. As mine. Completely mine." I turned in his arms so I could see his face. "I'm already yours, Enzo," I said softly. "I have been for months. I just didn't know you felt the same way." "I feel more than the same way," he said fiercely. "I feel like I've been half alive until you, and now I finally understand what it means to have something worth protecting. Something worth living for." He kissed me softly, tenderly, with none of the desperation from before, just pure affection and promise. "Sleep," he murmured against my lips. "Let me hold you while you sleep. And tomorrow, we'll figure out what comes next. Together." "Together," I agreed, my eyes already drifting closed. The last thing I felt before sleep claimed me was Enzo's lips pressed against my forehead and his whispered words. "Thank you for not running from my darkness, Reina. Thank you for seeing me." And in the safety of his arms, in the warmth of his love, I finally let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could have this. A mafia boss and his secretary. A monster and the woman who made him human. A love story written in blood and protection, and the kind of devotion that would destroy anyone who tried to come between us. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, we had each other. And that was enough. Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden streaks across Enzo's face as I woke up still wrapped in his arms. For a moment, I just watched him sleep. This dangerous man who'd killed for me, who declared war for me, who'd finally let his walls crumble and shown me the broken heart underneath all that controlled violence. His eyes opened slowly, and when they focused on me, a soft smile crossed his lips, something I'd never seen before. "Genuine peace. You're still here," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Where else would I be?" I asked softly. "I thought maybe I dreamed it," he admitted, his hand coming up to trace my face with gentle fingers. "Dreamed that you'd chosen to stay. That you'd chosen me." "I chose you," I confirmed, pressing a kiss to his palm. "I'll keep choosing you." His expression shifted into something fierce and possessive. He pulled me closer and kissed me deeply, slowly, like he had all the time in the world to memorize the taste of me. But the moment was interrupted by his phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Enzo pulled away with a frustrated sigh and grabbed the device. "This better be important, Marco." He listened for a moment, his expression growing serious. "When?" A pause. "How many?" Another pause. "I'm on my way. 20 minutes." He hung up and looked at me with regret already forming in his eyes. "Your brother is awake," he said. "At the hospital. He's asking for you." Relief flooded through me so powerfully I nearly cried. "Danny's okay?" "Physically, he'll recover. Broken ribs, concussion, various bruises and lacerations. But he's stable." Enzo cupped my face gently. "But there's something else. The remaining Cardenas lieutenants have called for a meeting. They want to negotiate terms of surrender." "That's good, isn't it?" "It should be," Enzo said carefully. "But in my world, surrender meetings can be traps. I need to go. And I need you somewhere safe while I handle this." I saw where this was going. "You want me to stay here?" "I want you at the hospital with your brother, surrounded by my best security team," he corrected. "Marco will escort you personally. You'll be safe there while I end this. Promise me you'll be careful," I said, gripping his shirt. He smiled, that dangerous smile that reminded me exactly who he was. Careful is for people who have something to lose. I have everything to lose now. So I'll be better than careful. I'll be lethal. He kissed me once more, then pulled away to get dressed. I watched as he transformed from the gentleman who'd held me all night into the cold, calculating mafia boss who commanded an empire. The expensive suit. The concealed weapons. The controlled authority that radiated from every movement. But when he looked at me again, his eyes softened. Get dressed, he said gently. Marco's waiting downstairs to take you to your brother. Mercy General Hospital's private wing was under complete lockdown. Morellini soldiers stationed at every entrance, every exit, every possible point of vulnerability. Marco led me through the corridors with 4 additional guards surrounding us like a human shield. Mr. Morellini doesn't take chances, Marco explained when he saw my expression. Especially not with you. We reached Danny's room, and Marco opened the door for me. My brother was propped up in bed, his face still swollen and bruised but his eyes alert. When he saw me, relief and anger warred across his features. Reina, he said, his voice hoarse. What the hell were you thinking? I rushed to his bedside, careful not to jostle him as I hugged him gently. I was thinking I couldn't let them kill you. So you traded yourself instead? Danny demanded. Do you have any idea what they would have done to you? It doesn't matter now, I said firmly. You're safe. That's what matters. Danny studied my face, then his expression shifted to something more serious. Morellini saved us. Both of us. His men pulled me out of that warehouse, brought me here, paid for everything. He paused. And the way they talk about you, Reina, what's going on between you and him? I felt heat rise to my cheeks. It's complicated. Is he treating you right? Danny asked protectively. Because I don't care how powerful he is, if he's hurting you. He's not hurting me, I said quickly. Danny, he's been protecting me for months. Watching over us. And last night, he killed the man who kidnapped you. He risked everything to save us both. Danny's expression softened slightly. You love him. It wasn't a question. Yes, I admitted quietly. I do. And he loves you? I nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in my throat. Danny sighed, wincing at the pain the movement caused. Then I guess I owe him my life. And my sister's happiness. He reached for my hand. But Reina, his world is dangerous. Are you sure you want that life? I'm sure, I said firmly. Because he makes me feel safer than I've ever felt. And I make him feel human in a world that's tried to turn him into a monster. Before Danny could respond, shouting erupted in the hallway outside. Marco burst through the door, his weapon drawn. Ms. Madison, we need to move you now. What's happening? I demanded. Cardenas loyalists, Marco said grimly. They just hit 3 of our locations simultaneously. And they're sending a message. They want you in exchange for ending the attacks. My blood ran cold. They want me. They want revenge for Raphael's death, Marco corrected. And they know the best way to hurt Mr. Morellini is through you. We need to get you to the secure location immediately. What about Danny? He'll be moved to a different secure facility, Marco assured me. Separate from you. Safer that way. I looked at my brother, fear and determination warring inside me. Go, Danny said firmly. Let Morellini protect you. I'll be fine. Marco was already pulling me toward the door when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Hello again, Ms. Madison. Raphael had 3 younger brothers. We're coming for you. And this time, there's nowhere Morellini can hide you. See you soon. Diego Cardenas. Attached was a photo, Enzo's penthouse building, taken from street level less than an hour ago. They knew where I'd been. They were tracking me. Marco, I started to show him the message, but suddenly the lights in the hospital flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in eerie red. And then the screaming started. Marco shoved me behind him, his weapon raised. Stay close to me. Don't make a sound. Gunfire erupted somewhere below us, the sharp crack of automatic weapons echoing through the hospital corridors. "They're inside the building," one of Marco's men said into his radio. "South stairwell breached. Multiple hostiles." "We're trapped," another guard said grimly. Marco's jaw clenched. "There's another way out. Service elevator to the roof. Helicopter extraction." He grabbed my arm and started pulling me down the hallway, away from Danny's room. I tried to look back, but Marco's grip was iron. "Your brother will be evacuated through a different route," he said firmly. "Right now, getting you out is the priority." We rounded a corner and ran straight into chaos. 3 Cardenas soldiers stood at the end of the hallway, weapons raised. Marco's team opened fire immediately, pushing me into a supply closet as bullets tore through the air. I pressed myself against the wall, my hands over my ears, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. When Marco pulled open the closet door, his face was grim. "2 of my men are down. We need to move now." He grabbed my hand and ran, pulling me through corridors and up stairwells while more gunfire echoed behind us. We finally burst through a door onto the hospital roof, where a helicopter was already waiting, blades spinning. "Get in," Marco shouted over the noise. I climbed into the helicopter, and Marco jumped in after me. The aircraft lifted off immediately, and I watched through the window as the hospital grew smaller beneath us. "Where are we going?" I shouted. "Secure location outside the city," Marco answered. "Mr. Morellini will meet us there after he's finished with the Cardenas brothers." "The Cardenas brothers?" I asked, fear gripping my chest. "How many are there?" "3, Marco said grimly. "Diego, Carlos, and Miguel. They've united what's left of Rafael's organization and declared blood vendetta against Mr. Morellini." "Against you?" My phone buzzed again. Another message. "Running won't save you. Tell Morellini we're coming for him. And when we're done with him, we're taking what's ours." "You, Diego." I showed the message to Marco, whose expression darkened. "They're baiting him," Marco said. "They know Mr. Morellini will do anything to protect you. They're going to use that against him. Then we need to stop him from walking into whatever trap they're setting," I said desperately. "Ms. Madison, with respect, you don't understand who you're dealing with," Marco said firmly. "Mr. Morellini has been preparing for this his entire life. He built his empire by being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He already knows this is a trap. Then why is he going?" Marco looked at me with something like pity in his eyes. "Because it's you. And he'll walk through fire for you, trap or not." The secure location turned out to be a fortified estate an hour outside the city, surrounded by high walls, armed guards, and enough security measures to protect a head of state. Marco escorted me inside to a comfortable sitting room with monitors showing every angle of the property. "You'll be safe here," Marco assured me. "No one knows about this location except Mr. Morellini's inner circle." "When will Enzo be here?" I asked. "Soon," Marco said. "He's meeting with the Cardenas brothers at neutral ground. Once that's resolved." "What if it's not resolved?" I interrupted. "What if they kill him?" Marco's expression was confident. "They won't. Mr. Morellini doesn't lose, Ms. Madison. Not when he has something worth winning for." But I couldn't shake the fear clawing at my chest. I spent the next hour pacing the room, checking my phone obsessively, waiting for word that Enzo was safe. Finally, my phone rang. "Enzo. Hello?" I answered desperately. "Reina." His voice was steady, controlled, but I could hear something underneath, exhaustion, maybe, or lingering adrenaline. "Are you safe?" "Yes. Marco got me out." "Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm fine," he said. "And it's over." "What's over?" "The Cardenas family," Enzo said simply. "All 3 brothers are dead. Their organization is scattered. The vendetta is finished." Relief so powerful it made me dizzy washed through me. "You killed them." "I gave them a choice," Enzo said coldly. "Surrender and dismantle their operations, or die fighting. They chose poorly." "Are you hurt?" "Nothing that won't heal," he said, which meant yes, but he didn't want me to worry. "Come back to me," I said desperately. Please. I'm already on my way, Enzo said, his voice softening. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And Reina. Yes. I love you. And when I get there, we're going to talk about what happens next. What happens next? Everything, he said simply. I'll see you soon. The line went dead. 23 minutes later, I counted every second, I heard the sound of a helicopter landing outside. I ran to the window and watched as Enzo emerged from the aircraft, his suit torn and blood-stained, his face showing signs of the fight he'd just survived. But he was walking, he was alive, and he was looking toward the house with an intensity that made my heart race. I met him at the door. We stared at each other for a moment, this dangerous man who'd just killed for me again, and the woman who'd chosen to love him despite everything. Then he crossed to me in 3 long strides and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. It's over, he murmured into my hair. It's finally over. No more threats. No more enemies coming for you. No more danger. I pulled back enough to look at his face, seeing the cuts and bruises marking his skin. You're hurt. I'm alive, he corrected. And you're safe. That's all that matters. He cupped my face with both hands, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. Reina, I need to ask you something, he said seriously. And I need you to answer honestly. Okay, I whispered. Can you live with what I am? He asked quietly. With the violence? With the danger that will always be lurking at the edges of our life? With knowing that I've killed people and will kill again to protect you? I looked at this man who'd saved my brother, who declared war for me, who just eliminated an entire crime family to keep me safe, and I knew my answer with absolute certainty. I can live with it, I said firmly. Because I know why you do it. I know that your violence is protection. That your darkness keeps people like me safe. That underneath the monster everyone fears is a man who's capable of so much love it terrifies him. I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady. And I'd rather live in danger with you, I said softly, than live safely with anyone else. Something fierce and possessive blazed in his eyes. Then marry me, he said. I froze. What? Marry me, Enzo repeated, his voice rough with emotion. Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. When your brother is healed and the dust has settled. Marry me and let me spend the rest of my life protecting you. Loving you. Making sure you never have to hide your tears again. Enzo. I know I'm not good enough for you, he continued desperately. I know I'm bringing you into a world of danger and darkness. I know I'm asking you to tie yourself to a man whose hands are stained with blood. But Reina, I swear to you, I will love you with everything I have. I will keep you safe. I will give you everything I am, broken and violent as it is, if you'll just. I kissed him. Cut off his desperate plea with my lips against his, pouring everything I felt into that kiss, all my love, all my acceptance, all my certainty that this dangerous, impossible man was exactly who I wanted. When I pulled away, he was staring at me with wonder and hope. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll spend my life with you. Yes, I'll be yours completely. Enzo's expression cracked, and he pulled me against his chest again, holding me like I was the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, he breathed. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for not running from my darkness. Thank you for protecting me, I said into his chest. Thank you for loving me enough to show me all your broken pieces. We stood there wrapped in each other, two impossible people who'd found something real in a world built on violence and lies. What happens now? I asked eventually. Enzo pulled back and smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine and so full of love it took my breath away. Now, he said, I take you home. I make sure your brother gets the best care possible. I rebuild my organization stronger than before. And then I spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you know how loved you are, Enzo finished softly. How safe. How cherished. How completely and utterly mine. Yours, I agreed, smiling through my tears. Mine, he confirmed possessively, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Always mine. And as the sun set over the fortified estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I realized that this was my happily ever after. Not perfect. Not safe. Not conventional. But real. A mafia boss who'd killed for me. A secretary who'd chosen to love him anyway. A future built on protection and possession, and the kind of devotion that would destroy anyone who tried to come between us. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined as a little girl. It was better. It was ours. And that was enough. The wedding was small, private, and heavily guarded. Danny walked me down the aisle, fully healed and sporting a new job as Enzo's head of legitimate business operations, far away from the dangerous side of the empire. Enzo stood at the altar in a custom black suit, looking like sin and salvation wrapped into one impossible package. When he saw me in my white dress, his eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he whispered when I reached him. "You're the most dangerous," I whispered back. "And yet you chose me anyway. Best decision I ever made." Marco officiated. He had gotten ordained online for this exact purpose, and when Enzo kissed me as his wife, I heard several of his soldiers whistling and cheering in the back. The reception was held at the penthouse, our home now, filled with my books and his weapons, my organization systems and his security measures, my light and his darkness blending into something that somehow worked. "Happy?" Enzo asked as we danced under the city lights. "Happier than I ever thought possible," I admitted. He pulled me closer, his hand possessive on my waist. "I'm going to spend every day making sure you stay that way." "I know you will." "I love you, Mrs. Morellini." "I love you too," I said, testing out my new name. "Even when you're impossible." "Especially when I'm impossible," he corrected with a smile. And as we danced in our fortress above the city, surrounded by armed guards and loyal soldiers and the empire we'd built together, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would hide my tears crying until the mafia boss stepped in again. And he would always, always find me. Because that's what we did for each other. He protected. I loved. He fought. I healed. He was the darkness. I was the light. And together, we were unstoppable. What was your favorite moment in Reina and Enzo's story? Which scene made you fall hardest for Enzo, when he declared war for Reina, when he shared his trauma about his mother, or when he proposed? Share your thoughts in the comment below.